In the dead of night in St. Petersburg, Russia, a secret meeting is being prepared. The year is 1916, and it's well after midnight when 5 men meet in a dark room. Each one of them despises the same person. The subject of this episode, Russia's most hated man, but they are all hiding their faces and voices. They are so ashamed for what they are about to do that they must remain anonymous. It's a night much like any other for most Russians. But these 5 men will never forget this night, nor should you, for this is the night that Russia's most hated man was killed. This is the story of Rasputin's last night alive. The men in the secret room were all part of the Russian nobility, all connected through family and circumstance to the royal family. The main organizer of this meeting was Prince Felix Yusupov. He was a member of the State Duma and related to both the Romanovs and the Tsarevich Alexei's doctors. The second conspirator was Grand Duke Dimitri Pavlovich, the king's cousin. Then there was Vladimir Purishkovich, a man with ties to the family from his relationship with Olga, the eldest Romanov daughter. Next was Nicholas Kaledin, a military officer related to Nicholas II through marriage. Finally, there was Sergei, a small group of men with a big problem. Their problem, however, was not their own making, but that of a mysterious man named Grigori Rasputin. Their problem was Rasputin's influence over the royal family. While Rasputin himself was not a member of the nobility, he had somehow wormed his way into the hearts and minds of the royal family, specifically those of Tsarina Alexandra. Since his rise to power, Rasputin had caused nothing but strife and anger among the nobility of Russia, and now he had become the most hated man in the country. It was said that Rasputin was a mystic, a holy man, though few knew of his past and even fewer cared. To them he was a troublemaker, a man who had no business in the royal court. They all sat in the dark room waiting for the clock to strike 1 a.m. When it did, they left the room and went to work. One of them went to get the car ready, while another went to make sure the wine was chilled. Then there were 3 men left in the kitchen where it all happened. They began preparing 2 cakes and 4 bottles of wine, but these were no ordinary cakes or wine. No, these cakes would serve as bait for the most hated man in Russia. These cakes and wine were laced with enough strychnine to kill an ox, let alone a man. But the men had no choice. Strychnine was the only poison available to them that would not kill their target immediately. It needed time to take effect, time for them to escape before anyone knew what had happened. They finished preparing everything just before 2 a.m. and then waited for their prey, and soon their prey arrived. It was Rasputin, or rather a carriage carrying Rasputin. The men had sent word to Rasputin that Prince Yusupov wanted to see him at a party at his palace, and though Rasputin did not know why, he was more than willing to attend. At this point, Rasputin had grown accustomed to being invited to parties at the palaces of the Russian nobility. What he didn't know was that this party would be his last. Yusupov opened the door to his palace as the carriage pulled up outside. The driver and horses were paid off, and the carriage was soon out of sight. Rasputin entered the palace and was shown to a room where he was asked to wait. Yusupov, along with the other men, would go over their plan one last time. Soon, it would be put into action. At exactly 2:30 a.m., the conspirators came out of their hiding place and entered Rasputin's waiting room. They greeted Rasputin warmly and told him it was time for the party to begin. And Rasputin, ever the socialite, was more than happy to oblige. As they walked down the hallway towards the party, Yusupov stopped and turned to Rasputin. He told Rasputin that he wanted to show him something, and as Rasputin walked past him, Yusupov lightly slapped him across the face. Rasputin turned around and stared at Yusupov, angry and confused. Before anything could happen, though, Grand Duke Dimitri stepped forward and grabbed Rasputin by the arm. He told Rasputin that he needed to speak with him privately and led him away from the others. The 2 men walked into a side room where Rasputin calmed down a bit. Grand Duke Dimitri apologized for Yusupov's behavior and explained that he had been drinking heavily lately. Rasputin accepted his apology and the 2 men made plans to meet again later that night. Rasputin then left the room and headed back to the party. But little did he know that his life was about to change forever. Once Rasputin had left the room, the Grand Duke signaled to the others that it was time for the plan to move forward. Rasputin had been taken care of. All they had to do now was wait for him to eat one of the cakes laced with poison and then escape before anyone knew what had happened. However, Rasputin was nowhere to be seen, so they waited a bit longer until finally, at 3:15 a.m., Rasputin returned to the room. He looked a little drunk and a lot dangerous. His eyes were red and wild, and his breathing was heavy. The Grand Duke knew that if Rasputin ate the cake now, the poison would kill him quickly, so he decided to stall for time. He offered Rasputin a drink, which Rasputin accepted. They talked for a few minutes and the Grand Duke tried to sober Rasputin up a bit, but Rasputin was too drunk and too angry to listen. He took the glass from the Grand Duke and smashed it on the floor. The conspirators gasped. This was not part of the plan, but Rasputin just laughed and picked up the shards of glass. The Grand Duke tried to stop him, but Rasputin cut him with a shard and screamed, "You want to kill me? Come on then." The conspirators were stunned. They had never seen Rasputin like this before. He was not the weak, frail man they had expected. He was a monster, but they had come too far to turn back now. The Grand Duke signaled for the others to get the cakes ready. Rasputin calmed down a bit and sat on a chair. The Grand Duke brought over a cake and offered it to him. Rasputin smiled and started eating. The Grand Duke watched him closely. If Rasputin finished the cake quickly, the poison would not have time to take effect. But Rasputin was slow and methodical in his eating. The Grand Duke knew that they had time. When Rasputin finished the cake, the Grand Duke signaled for the others to bring out the second cake. Rasputin looked up at them, his eyes narrowed. He knew that something was wrong, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. Still, he wasn't about to let a little thing like suspicion ruin his night. He reached out for the second cake and started eating. This time, the Grand Duke kept track of the time. Every minute that Rasputin took to eat the cake was a minute closer to death. Finally, at 4:10 a.m., Rasputin finished the second cake. The Grand Duke and the others watched him closely, but nothing happened. Rasputin seemed fine, had the poison not worked. But then, at 4:20 a.m., Rasputin started to feel sick. He stumbled back from the table and vomited on the floor. The conspirators panicked. Had they done something wrong? Was the poison not strong enough? But then they saw the look on Rasputin's face. He was in pain. Rasputin collapsed to the floor and screamed for help. The conspirators watched as he writhed in agony. Then, at 4:35 a.m., Rasputin stopped moving. The conspirators had killed Rasputin, but they had also failed. The poison had taken too long to work, and Rasputin had died on the bathroom floor instead of in his bed. Now they had to get rid of his body. They wrapped Rasputin in a blanket and carried him out of the palace. They put his body in a nearby river and hoped that it would be washed away. But the next morning, the river was searched and Rasputin's body was found. News of his death spread like wildfire. The conspirators knew that they were in trouble. They had killed Rasputin, but they had also failed to hide his body. Now they had to flee for their lives. The 5 men met one last time before going their separate ways. They had killed Rasputin, but they had also lost. Join us next time as we continue the story of Rasputin.